figure in Chicago. He was respected by, the academia. He was respected by the politicians there, and also the cultural scene in Chicago. One of the things that I took away from that school, other than just music, was a philosophy that was instilled in me and actually all the students at DuSable High School. One of the things that Captain Dyer instilled in us was that he outlawed the word can't. Okay? Yeah. And if you want to get his ire up, you just mention that you can't do something, and he would become very upset with you. But I took that philosophy with me once I graduated, and I attribute my success to that particular philosophy. We had everyone had to develop a very positive approach to life, and that eliminated any fear of failure. So if you stayed positive and worked, did what's necessary, you would always achieve your goals. And so when I arrived in New York with the Hampton Orchestra, I had that in mind. And to tell you one of the miracles that particular mindset, I was stranded in New York after having worked with Lionel Hampton for a considerable amount of months, actually. This was all in 1956, and the Lionel Hampton Orchestra had a tour of Australia, and the promoters who also had Stan Kenton's orchestra on the same tour. So rather than taking all the members of the bands, they split the bands in half and had the leaders, Stan Kenton and Lionel Hampton, take turns leading this amalgamation of musicians from both bands. And since I was one of the youngest members and the newest members of the Lionel Hampton Orchestra, it was decided that I would stay in New York City. Now, at the time, my home was still in Chicago, and he wasn't given. I asked for a retainer so that I could pay rent and feed myself while they were away. And the reply from the Lionel Hampton camp is that if I was still there, and when the band returned from the tour of Australia, that I could have my chair back. But the band was going to be going for up to 2 weeks, so that was something that I wasn't prepared for. And in a matter of days, I got a call from Dinah Washington's husband, who had been also a member of Lionel Hampton's band when I joined. He called me and asked me if I'd be interested in joining the group that Dinah Washington was put together. 7-piece band, trumpet, trombone, saxophone, and what was the other instrument? Piano, bass, and drums. That's only 6. I think it was 2 saxophones, tenor saxophone and baritone, so that's 7. Because Dana's husband, Eddie Chambly, also played the tenor saxophone, so he was the 7th member, and also the band leader. But I attribute that to my attitude of being positive, and when you have positive thoughts and positive actions, positive things occur around you, and that's sort of been my mantra throughout my whole career, because things have fallen into my lap. When I was in a situation where I didn't have a clear resolution to whatever problems that excuse me, that came up. the problem would be solved by one means or another. And it always seemed to be as a result of my positive outlook on life. I was able to recover from many situations where I didn't really have a solution in mind, but the solution presented itself to me, and that's what I'm talking about. So once in New York, I left Hampton. I'm now with Dinah Washington, and for some time that was a wonderful experience. I brought Charles Davis in on the group, my ex-classmate and band member, we had a great time back in Dinah Washington. She broke up the band and divorced her husband, and so I decided that I would officially move to New York City, because both Dinah Washington and Lyle Hampton were headquartered there. By this time I was familiar with New York, and I felt that it was time for me to make the move, so I did that. And once I arrived in New York, I went down to a club called the Five Spot, where Johnny Griffin, an ex-Chicagoan, was performing with Thelonious Monk. And we went directly to the Five Spot. Johnny Griffin, at that same evening, after the gig, took us to his apartment, and Monk was there. Johnny fixed breakfast for all of us, and we sat around and talked. And you can imagine my pleasure to be in New York, the first day in New York, and I'm having breakfast with Thelonious Monk. That was wonderful. So Johnny Griffin also was instrumental in introducing me to Orrin Keepnews, the vice president of Riverside Records. And Orrin Keepnews put me to work in the shipping department, boxing up records and sending them out to various distributors. And at the same time, in the same shipping department was Kenny Drew, the pianist, Chet Baker, the trumpet player, Wilbur Ware, the bass player. Philly Joe Jones was also in and out of there during that particular time. And so I had an opportunity to collaborate with a few of these individuals. Philly Joe Jones in particular, did a recording with him. I also did my first recording as a leader. Recording came out as entitled "Keep Swinging." Had a photograph of me in front with my trombone in my hand, and in the background was a picture of somebody like John L. Sullivan, the prize fighter, and so the caption of the album, the title of the album was "Keep Swinging," and it is, the image was that. Of course, musically swinging, and the John L. Sullivan was a very successful individual in the fighting business, so it all fit together. I also did some other recordings for Riverside Records with Johnny Griffin, Blue Mitchell, and who else? I think it was one more. I can't think of the name right now. But anyway, that was sort of like the launching of my career, and because as a result of me recording with those individuals who had already had a reputation, it sort of elevated my image as a jazz artist. I wasn't a rookie anymore. I had credentials, and I was able to use those credentials to move even further up the ladder in the jazz world. So I wound up staying in New York for 8 to 10 years, during which time I performed and recorded with Freddie Hubbard, with McCoy Tyner. As a matter of fact, McCoy Tyner was on that second album that I did for Riverside Records. The first album I had, my rhythm section, was Tommy Flanagan on piano, Sam Jones playing bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. And the saxophonist that was on that recording with me is Jimmy Heath, one of the Heath brothers. And again, that elevated my stature as a jazz artist. You know, I'm in really good company performing with those individuals. And that also made me eligible to record with the other individuals, Donald Byrd, and Sam Rivers. I did that recording with him. I did a recording with Duke Pearson's orchestra, and you know, so it was really good times I had in New York. After that, years have passed, and I was able to maneuver myself into a position where I could be hired by the contractors who service the Broadway shows. I got a position at the Schubert Theater in the pit orchestra there, and one of the perks in the orchestra that I could take time off from time to time to go on the road with various people. So I went on the road first with Mal Jones and Ted Lewis Orchestra. Not Ted, Ted Lewis. Is that name? Did I get his name right? I think he's a drummer. Yeah, Thad Jones. Mel Lewis, not Ted or Thad. Mel Lewis is his name. And then came back, went back to work at the theater, playing in shows. And I was also recording, doing commercial recordings during the daytime. So I was becoming a pretty successful musician in New York City. But at the same time, I found myself being drawn away from my love, and that's performing bebop. You know, I certainly wasn't playing very much bebop in the pit orchestra at the Schubert Theater. And so I became bored. And the political games for those musicians, there was several restaurants that we would frequent. And while at those restaurants, there would be other musicians, studio musicians we call them, and also the contractors would also eat lunch in those same establishments. So the game was, you know, you buy a drink for so and so, and they'll buy a drink for you, and it was sort of passing that whole thing around, brown nosing, I call it. But it was a successful means of getting introduced to the right contractors. And so I was in the recording studio during the daytime, and also in the theater in the evening. So I was making money, but I was also frustrated because I wasn't really doing what let my heart leave me, doing the music that I really loved, and that was bebop. I got a call to go into the studio. One of Duke Ellington's trombonists was missing, and they called me at the last minute. So within half an hour, I was in the studio with my horn out, ready to play, and that worked well. A month or two later, I got another call from the Duke Ellington's orchestra and asked me if I wanted to go on tour. They were getting ready to go on an Asian tour, not just Asian, but the tour encompassed both private promoters, and it was also a the government. It was I forget what they call those tours when you go around and perform for the soldiers in these foreign lands. The Vietnamese War was at its most heated moment, and we were in Laos performing on one of the army bases there. We also went to Australia. We went to Japan, and the Philippines. We performed in all those places. But one of the things that occurred, though, when I asked for permission to go on this particular tour with Duke Ellington's orchestra, the contract at the Schubert Theater refused to give me permission, so I resigned. I resigned my position at the Schubert Theater so I could go out on the road with Duke Ellington, which made all the sense in the world. But at the same time, I was giving up a very lucrative activity, because not only was I performing at the Schubert Theater, I was also being on call for recording sessions, which is, you know, you made a lot of money doing that. As I said, I wasn't really happy doing that because I wasn't being able to express my main love. And even with the Duke Ellington Orchestra, I mean, it was prestigious being there. But Duke Ellington, as much as I respect and admire and you know, enjoy being in the company of those giants of jazz, you know, Cat Anderson, Cootie Williams, Johnny Hodges, you know, and the love of my life, Paul Gonsalves. You know, that's something that you just don't have opportunities to do that. But I was, and I consider myself very, very fortunate for having those experiences. And it also was a growth period for me, because I realized that as one of the youngest members of the band, and I was out of my element performing with Duke Ellington. Also, I really respected his music, I respected his stature, you know, all those things were good. I respected all the members of the orchestra, but I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. I couldn't play bebop